Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom and a different location. And this is really only so I can be in front of my computer and read off a list. And we're going to be talking about the top 10 movies that I would like to see on Blu Ray or 4K. I don't actually have a 4K player, so it is Blu Ray for me. And this is a personal list. This is not necessarily the top 10 list of the most deserving movies that have yet to have an HD kind of release. And it's certainly not exhaustive. This is just 10 that I have picked. There are obviously more than this. If you know the channel, it's lots of B movies and lower budget stuff. So many of these do not have, many movies that I review and like don't have a Blu-ray release. So this is but 10 I would really like. Now, I have had a look and I've scoured pretty much the entire world for Blu-rays of any of these, and I do not believe any of these have a Blu-ray release in any country. But if I am wrong, please do let me know any details in the comments, because I would like to pick them up, quite frankly. Some of these have got a DVD release, but as far as I know, at least at the moment, at time of recording of this video, none of these have a Blu-ray release anywhere in the world. These are in no order necessarily, it's just the order that I've kind of picked them out.
The greater the need for a hero. Aaran is the young hero whose destiny it is to either save his people from a fate worse than death, or to lead them to ruin.
So number one, a fantasy movie called The Archer and the Sorceress, also known as Archer, Fugitive from the Empire. And this is an early 80s sword and sorcery movie that I think is forgotten about now. I do believe it was made for TV. As far as it does have a DVD release in Europe, I think maybe Germany or somewhere like that, because I've actually got it. But this was the only way I could find it on disc. And I remember when this came out, people talked about it a little more, but it's one of these films that have got forgotten about. I mean, hopefully, like, they've released The Sword and the Sorcerer and stuff, but again, I think no one really talks about this movie, and there you go. So that's number one, and it was a fun kind of fantasy epic, very much like the kind of Sword and Sorcerer, that sort of thing. And if you like those movies, I've got a review of all of these, by the way. Please go and check it out, although some of them are quite old reviews and they're a little bit janky. Number two.
And only the Northstar can bring back the peace.
Fist of the Northstar!
Your dreams are over.
Fist of the Northstar, and we are talking the live-action version of this, starring Gary Daniels. I'm not a huge fan of animation, but Fist of the Northstar, the anime, or at least the anime movie, was one I actually did quite like, and I am a fan of Gary Daniels. So I was quite excited for this when it came out. And to be fair, this is probably Gary Daniels' most high production in regards to a starring role for him. It has got a DVD release in the UK and probably other countries as well, but to my knowledge it has never been released on Blu-ray. And although it's not the greatest adaptation, it's kind of like a Mad Max movie with kind of martial arts, and it's a loose kind of adaptation. But I still could have quite liked it, I have to say. I quite like, as I say, the character of Ken from the anime, and I like Gary Daniels and this kind of Mad Max style sort of setting, and I would like to have it on Blu-ray because I'm a fan of the source material and of Gary Daniels, and it's not a bad movie, I don't think, if you like schlock.
In a land of superstition and fear, a prince was born.
They say he's a messiah.
His name would strike terror in the hearts of all who heard it.
His coming was foretold by the priests.
Why aren't you begging for your life like any other man?
Because he isn't like any other man.
Number 3 is I believe, a TV movie, so again, probably not much chance of this getting a release, and that is Dark Prince, The Legend of Dracula, sometimes called Dark Prince, The True Story of Dracula. And this is actually a historical movie rather than being a horror movie about a vampire. This actually tells the story of Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler, in his kind of his life, basically. It stars, I think his name's Rudolph Martin, and an interesting thing here, he actually played Dracula in the Buffy versus Dracula episode, and he kind of looks the same. He's got the long hair in this, so it almost plays like a kind of Buffy versus Dracula prequel. But I like it because I think the Vlad the Impaler, you know, historical figure is a very, very interesting figure in history. And obviously, it's going to be, has been the inspiration for the vampire story. But even outside of that, I think he's very much a person who would, you know, have an interesting story to tell. Now, I believe there has been like a Romanian TV series or film about this, but certainly for the West, I would say that there's obviously some room to have some more, and this was one of them. Like I said, it was a TV production, so it's not mega budget, but I still kind of liked it, and as I say, it's a very, very interesting kind of story. I actually read a book, a historical book about the actual kind of Vlad Tepes, so, you know, it's interesting stuff.
I want prisoners.
An empty well, their only weapon.
The well is dry, Captain. We know that, but they don't know that.
Thirsty? Yeah, I don't blame you. It's a warm day.
They need water bad, and they'll fight for it if they have to. And while they're fighting, they ain't outflanking nobody.
They're poised to stand fast for one thing more precious than water: time.
It's us against the Nazis. Captain, thousands of our boys are trying to regroup in El Alamein, and if we can buy them 24 hours, just 24 hours, we might make a difference.
That's an awfully big might, Sergeant.
Jim Belushi is Sergeant Joe Gunn.
Sergeant, you can trust me to help.
Trust you? Now, why would I do that?
In an epic tale of war.
They're coming! 2 armies, both dying of thirst, fighting over an empty well. That don't sum it up.
Next up, we have Sahara from 1995. And this one stars James Belushi, and it's actually a remake of a Humphrey Bogart movie. And it's a war film about World War II, an Africa campaign, and basically it tells the stories of a kind of a ragtag group of Allied soldiers, American, French, Australian, British, all who are kind of the remnants of their defeated sort of regiments and stuff. And they find like a kind of oasis, or a very small oasis in the middle of the desert that has a small amount of water, and there's like a mass amount of German Africa Corps kind of who want to kind of claim this, and they don't realise there's barely any water there, and this kind of ragtag group of allies have to defend this kind of this small well, pretending that it's like loads of water to try and keep the Germans away from an actual kind of military target that they're kind of heading towards. I thought it was a kind of I mean, it's not a realistic war film necessarily, but I think it benefits from having some really great characters, because you have these different Allied soldiers from different countries, and as such, they're quite different, if that makes sense. And the idea here that they're actually defending this, you know, this well with barely any water in it, fooling the Germans into thinking they actually got hold of, you know, this precious resource out in the middle of the desert, and the Germans are all kind of dying of dehydration, so they have to win. Little do they know that there's barely any water there. So it's a great story, and I have to say, you know, it's great characters and some good action sequences and stuff. If you like World War II movies, I would suggest checking it out. Next one is a film that is very dear to my heart, and it's one probably out of all of this list, if I could pick one to be on Blu-ray, this would be it. And that is Hearts and Armour, and that is an Italian sword and sorcery movie, fantasy movie, that stars Tanya Roberts, and is kind of like a Excalibur sort of style movie where you have knights in kind of full plate armour, and it's basically about the kind of the Christians versus the Moors. And we have kind of these two opposing sides, and there's kind of a love story in it, hence the Hearts, where we have a female Christian knight who kind of falls in love with like the leader of like this particular group of Moors. I don't really like that part of the story, if I'm honest, but there's some great kind of like sort of sequences of kind of night combat and stuff like that. Some real kind of fun characters. You know, it has a bootleg DVD release, which I have, but there's been no Blu-ray and no official even DVD release as far as I know. This is one that I hope will get the kind of the treatment one day. It's a good movie if you like the kind of the sort of fantasy stuff. The fantasy element is relatively subdued in this movie. It's not complete sort of, you know, magic and monsters and things. It's relatively, there is a bit of that, but it is kind of more about a kind of like the Moors and Christian kind of conflict that obviously is from history. But it's a good movie. I really like it, at least. So yes, that one I really wish would have a Blu-ray release.
Two brothers. One lives by the samurai code.
I am Yakuza now.
The other lives for revenge. Drawn into a bizarre murder.
Do you know who the killer is?
I have a damn good idea.
Your life is in danger if you do not fight.
Let the combat begin! Where the world's most brutal weapons masters meet for money and fame. He must face them all.
Destiny.
And his own brother.
Next one is one I think probably will get a Blu-ray release somewhere along the line, and that is American Samurai. This one stars David Bradley, and it's notable for an early role for Mark Dacascos. And it's essentially like a tournament movie, and the director has recently put out on YouTube a director's cut of this movie, which I have watched. I didn't bother reviewing it because it's not actually that much different, if you want my honest opinion. And some of the changes are not for the better. Some are, some aren't. But it's a real fun kind of tournament movie. As I say, you know, you've got samurai, you've got Vikings. There's a guy who looks like Conan the Barbarian. And our main guy is this American samurai, obviously played by sort of David Bradley, who is at odds with his adopted brother, played by Mark Dacascos. And it's some pretty decent kind of martial arts here, and it's very much like a kind of Mortal Kombat sort of style film. So, you know, it is cheesy B movie, but I kind of liked it. It's one of the better sort of tournament style movies, certainly, you know, the B movie like level ones. I'm not saying it's better than Enter the Dragon or anything, but I liked it. I think it was fun, and yeah, I mean, like I said, this one I think possibly will have a Blu-ray release in the near future. If I had to bet, this is the one on this list that I would suggest would probably have one sooner rather than later.
The power incarnate that alone can withstand the forces of darkness with sinew and steel. The dawn of history. Animal instincts of man spewing violence through the caverns of ignorance. Blindly determined to destroy the life-giving light. Invincible Ator, holding the fate of all mankind in his mighty hands.
Next up we have Ator the Invincible, aka the Blade Master. And this is the second out of the Ator movies. And they have put out Blu-rays for 1 and 3, but not 2. There's actually 4 Ator movies, but the fourth one has got a different actor and it doesn't really feel like part of the series. So I wouldn't be that fussed if they didn't have the fourth one. But the second one, you know, then you can complete your Miles O'Keefe collection, and Miles O'Keefe was the actor that played Ator in the first 3 movies, and it seems weird to have 1 and 3 released but not 2. So, you know, please release number 2. They are cheesy. They're a kind of Italian financed, you know, Conan rip-offs. They were cheaply produced. They were quickly made. I'm not saying this is a quality movie, people, but I enjoyed this. It's one of those movies that I really enjoyed when I was a kid, and so it has this kind of nostalgia for me that I like. And I've got the first and third, and I would like the second. I'd get the fourth as well, but I'm not too worried about that one.
Must face the unimaginable.
Oh, what's that? I can't see anything!
Next up is maybe more of a higher profile movie than some of the others, and that is Man-Thing. And this was before the MCU, just before the MCU. I think it was 2006, I want to say. And it was a movie that ended up, it was meant to be a kind of theatrical release, but it ended up being put on the Sci-Fi Channel. It was shot in Australia, and as such, the Marvel producers didn't really get that much hands-on experience with it, and very much left it up to the kind of the director and stuff. And of all the kind of the Marvel movies that have been kind of produced, they said this one they had really the least hands-on with. Actually, we're talking about the Marvel execs here, and as such, I think they're sort of distancing itself. Now, Man-Thing was actually one of my favourite comic characters when I was younger, and this movie plays more like a horror film, to be honest. And you can watch this without knowing that it's a Marvel movie, and just watch it as a kind of a swamp monster movie. The Man-Thing is a practically realised creation. Looks pretty cool. There's a couple of CGI enhancements and stuff. This is released on DVD. I actually have a DVD steelbook of this, but it's never been released on Blu Ray, and now the rights have gone back to Disney Marvel. I suspect this will never see the release on Blu Ray. There are a certain like Marvel properties like Generation X or Power Pack that were kind of pilots for TV shows that never got picked up, but this one was actually a movie made as a movie, not as a TV pilot, which I think, you know, makes this one stand apart from some of the other kind of like lesser known Marvel properties. So you know, I remain hopeful that this might get one day a Blu-ray release, but you know, I hope for a grey release at the very least. Next up, we have a more modern film, and this is one I suspect no one has heard of, and this has not even got a DVD release. Some years ago on the channel, I got reached out to by this director who asked me to review this movie called All the Devils Are Here, sometimes known as Sleepwalkers. And it's kind of like a throwback movie where we have a bunch of kind of like young people going out on a holiday somewhere, and they get attacked by demons and stuff. It's really fun. I really enjoyed this movie. I mean, it's not perfect, but to not even get a DVD release, my God. I mean, you can watch this on like Prime or whatever, but I was kind of hoping that this would get a some type of physical release somewhere, but as of yet, and I checked just before this kind of I did this video, no such luck. And like I said, it's a fun movie. It's got cool monsters, cool practical effects. It's got Dale DeBone in it, one a porn star in a kind of a non-porn role here. But yeah, it's a slimy monster movie with kind of, like I said, some kind of retro sort of sensibilities, and I enjoyed it. At least give me a DVD release, god damn it. Anyway.
1969. A team of U.S. soldiers on a reconnaissance mission in Vietnam.
Gonna set up on the line. Me, Easy, LT, Pretty Boy, Cracker, cover our rear.
Don't ever get behind me, I pull the rear.
Everything they think, everything they share, and everything they feel is captured by one man, a cameraman designated 84 Charlie Mopic.
Sergeant, we need to do some background interviews on each man. I thought we'd start with you.
Get that thing on my face.
The medics figured I was dead. Throw me on a chopper with the bodies. Makes you think God's got something special planned for you.
We were just white trash. Dirt poor, big family. I got 4 kids myself.
Do you have a problem being led by a black man?
And then the final one for this list is 84 Charlie Mopic, which does have a DVD release, but no Blu Ray release. And this is a notable film because this is one of the earliest examples of found footage. Now, this is not a horror film. This is a Vietnam War film. 84 Charlie Mopic stands for the assignment for a cameraman who's following a platoon of soldiers out on patrol to basically, you know, take footage for the army. So it follows him, and you are in the team, and obviously the other soldiers are kind of interacting with him. So this was a really early found footage example, and it does not get the respect that it deserves because people overlook it because it's not a horror film, and a lot of people cite, you know, other movies as the kind of the progenitors of the found footage style. And although it wasn't necessarily the first, it's certainly one of the earliest examples and one of the few examples of a non-horror element here. And it's very good. I mean, I've seen reactions from people who served in Vietnam, and that a lot of people say because of the more intimate style of found footage, it's very, they feel it's quite, it captures the feeling of kind of being there because it is a little bit more of an intimate experience. So, you know, check it out. I've reviewed all of these movies on the channel, so if you're interested in a little bit more, you know, detail about them, please go check them out. Some of these reviews are a little older, so they're not very good. But there you go. And like I said, if you know of any of these movies that have been released on Blu Ray, please do let me know, and I will definitely check that out. Anyway, thanks for watching, and let me know, are there any films that you would like to see on Blu Ray that currently are not? And I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.